Pray. Dear Lord, we come on behalf of those who have entrusted us with leading through the Ministry of Education and Youth here in Jamaica, land we love. Help us to be leaders in balance and to realize that how we think and how we are is very impactful on those who we lead. Help us approach our role as leaders in an intentional manner that facilitates listening, reflecting, and connecting with each other and those we lead. Help us to be more compassionate, loving, and peaceful in our decisions. Remind us that we are your witnesses. We offer ourselves to continue to serve you, and in so doing, bring glory to your name. And so this afternoon, we ask you, Creator God, to bless this afternoon's proceedings. In your precious and holy name, amen. At this time, I invite Mrs. Winnie Berry to bring us the welcome and opening remarks.
Good afternoon, leaders par excellence. The National College for Educational Leadership welcomes you to its second hosting of the National College for Education. Affirm the work and worth of educational leaders. 2, to promote exemplary leadership practices, values, skills, and dispositions to be emulated. But first, let me recognize those present with us. You would have heard a short while ago our moderator and program officer, Miss Camille Michael Patterson. We have with us as well the chairman of NCEL's steering committee and director of the Joint Board of Teacher Education, Dr. Joan Hernandez, the president for the Jamaica Diaspora for Education Task Force, Dr. Leo Gillen, the senior director of programs and organizer, who we like to call our professor, Mr. Karif Clark, or Director of Quality Assurance, Miss Terrian Wallace, or partners in education from the University of the West Indies, representing Dr. Marcia Rainford, who is Director of the School of Education. And I think it is Dr. Algulo. Or honorees, DCOs, and regional directors, leaders, the stellar team at the NCEL, program officers, managers, administrators, quality assurance, ICT officers, records and documents, finance and reception officers, all. Welcome again. I greet you as we seek to raise the bar under the theme, Leadership for National Development, Digital Transformation, and Research Imperatives. The National College for Educational Leadership was established as part of the thrust to reform the Jamaican education system. NCEL, since its inception in 2011, has designed a suite of context-related and practitioner-based training programs, courses, initiatives to improve the competencies, knowledge, and disposition of pre- and in-service educational leaders to improve the ways in which they lead instructions, transformation, organization, community, and change. Last year, March 20, the NCEL launched its inaugural Leadership Day webinar to highlight school leaders who have enrolled and completed NCEL programs and are successful in their current leadership post. The National College for Educational Leadership is once again proud to acknowledge the stalwart leadership of some of our system leaders. And we're not doing all of them today, so we have started with these, who have contributed to the successes of the education system. These are individuals who have toiled over the years, exemplifying some of the best attributes of system leadership. You will hear about them today, and you'll hear from them as well. The work of the NCEL as a premier institution in educational leadership has been evident in the successes seen in many of the institutions led by its trainees. Many have been products of the Effective Principles Training Program that we refer to as our EPTP program, or Aspirant Principal Program, APP, or Child Friendly School Leadership Program, CFS, or Strategic Middle Leadership Initiative, SMLI, or Leadership and School Policy, LSP, or Leadership for Safer School, LSS, or Inclusive School Leadership Training Program, ISLTP, or Primary Specialist Leadership Program, that is, we offer along with our mathematics team, or Virtual Instructional Leadership, and more recently, our Financial Management and Leadership Program. And we have also been offering, along with the curriculum unit, multi-grade school leadership initiatives. This afternoon, we celebrate our educational leaders, and you'll be treated to thought-provoking and insightful presentations by your keynote speakers and researchers. Please stay engaged and embrace the trophies that we raise on this NCEL's Leadership Day, March 20, 2024. The archives have them.
Thank you, Mrs. Berry, for that warm welcome. Dr. Joan Spencer Hernandez, Chair of NCEL Steering Committee, will bring us greetings. Over to you, Dr. Spencer Hernandez.
Okay. Are you hearing me now?
We are hearing you now, Doc.
Oh, I'm so sorry about that. Let me start again. Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much, NCEL. I want to congratulate you on this initiative. This is your second year. Last year, you did exceptionally well with it. And I'm happy to see that we're celebrating another Leadership Day. On behalf of the team, I want to say congratulations again. This Leadership Day is a means of recognizing educational leaders for their contributions to the advancement of education and the nation under the theme you heard already, Leadership for National Development, Digital Transformation, and Research Imperatives. How very important that we should be focusing on these two areas. In highlighting the work of some of our systems leaders, we're fulfilling our vision. Now, Mrs. Berry shared with you what our vision and mission is like. And really, when we do this, when we celebrate excellence, we are emphasizing the importance of high quality educational leaders who are able to create and sustain effective schools, thus contributing to national and regional development. I anticipate today that you share, you enjoy, and you celebrate with us. Thank you so much for being here, and all the best for an exciting rest of the afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Spencer Hernandez. I invite greetings now from Dr. Agabola, Senior Lecturer, Educational Planning and Policy at the University of the West Indies. She's bringing greetings on behalf of Dr. Marcia Rainford. Over to you, Dr. Agabola.
Yeah. Good afternoon, colleagues, and the organizer of this webinar. Just has been the anchor has introduced, Dr. Bola Peju Agbola, a senior lecturer of educational planning, policy and leadership at the School of Education. Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. Let me, hello?
Yes,
Can
Doc, we
you
are
all see my
hearing you.
face now? Yeah. So I am here representing Dr. Marcia Rainford, the Director of School of Education, who is unavoidably absent for this event. She conveys apologies and sends a warm congratulations to the organizers and the members of this event. So she asked me to inform the organizers that School of Education has always been in the forefront of charting a new course for the intending leaders. And as we all know, in this global era that is technologically driven, and the requirements for the leaders in the school system to be to be able to meet up with the requirements and face the challenges that the technology is presenting since the era of COVID-19. She believed that School of Education, having in one of our program, management and also leadership, share with you your visions and aspiration to train and develop school leaders who are able to imbibe the necessary skills in their practices as leaders and able to transform the school system, the upcoming leaders. So she asked me to tell the coordinators and the program organizers that School of Education will always partner with this organization in whatever capacity to ensure that your goals and aspiration for this laudable program is achieved. She also wants me to let you know that she will be ready. She will be ready to offer assistance in her capacity as Director of School of Education to support your vision and your goal. Once again, congratulations for the this second outing and the timely theme for this today webinar, which is very relevant to leaders and will-be leaders. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Dr. Agabola. I invite Dr. Leo Gilling, President of JDET, to bring us greetings. Over to you, Dr. Gilling.
Thank you. Good evening to you, and I hope you're hearing me. If you say yes, I know.
Yes, sir, we are.
All right. Thank you so much, and thank you for having me this year, second year of this leadership platform. It's really it was really an honor to be here last year, and I'm back again this year. So one of the things that I oh boy, one of the things I like about collaborating with the NCEL is that both organizations, the JD10 and NCEL, are aligned for national development, and that's quite appreciative. If you don't know about JD10, I'll tell you a little bit about JD10. We have more than 2,500 persons registered with our organization across 47 countries. For the education sector, we have several sectors: health, education, technology, all of those. But for the education sector, we have 5 different task forces: early childhood, primary, secondary, educational leadership, tertiary, and one other, and that's, I don't have that info, but there are 5 different sectors. And so we are able, thank you so much. We are able to provide in the educational sector the various areas that affect these 5 different sectors in education. And so we have 3 different projects that we run each year. First, we do a weekly Jaminar, which is a webinar, where we invite teachers onto Zoom weekly to talk about the various activities, the various developments that they can use in their classrooms. We give them a whole lot of information. They can choose what they need to use. We also have another project where we take 7 teachers, this is on its 10th year, from Jamaica to go to California to learn how to use iPads and devices to teach. And that's been going on for 10 years. Our 9th year with our Education Summit coming up this year, May 28th through June 1st, we'll invite 150 plus teachers from Jamaica. Last year we had 125. We increased this year to 150 plus. And then we have about 3 or 4 from other Caribbean nations coming to our summit for 5 days, the 28th to the 28th, 29th, 30th, 31st. And then on the 1st of June, there's a gala. I'll give you some ideas about the kind of developments, professional development that they'll be exposed to. Here's one in Technology Matters, from tablets to artificial intelligence, and that's an overview. Another one called Google Artificial Intelligence Products in the Classroom, Friend or Foe. And then we have teaching them how to teach boys, how to reach boys. It's a poster rotation. And then teaching and reaching boys, poster rotation B, poster rotation A and B. And then we have a third segment. But they'll be in at least 30 different workshops in the summit. The workshop will be held this year at the University of Miami, and we are super happy to have the Minister of Education being our keynote speaker for the event. Several other projects going on with JD TAN that we're specific about developing the leadership skills, the content, and everything that they need to know in managing their classrooms and operating and their classrooms, and making sure that their students are given the best opportunity for advancement. That's what JD TAN is all about. And I'm thankful again for you inviting me, Mrs. Berry, and your team. I'm always available to you and to your staff. Have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gillian. Quite enlightening on JDET. Wishing you all the best for the series of activities for this year. Before we go to Mrs. Rankin with the introduction of the keynote speaker, I would like to take this opportunity to establish the protocols for this afternoon's webinar, our Leadership Day webinar. As introduced before, I'm Mrs. Camille Michael Patterson, your moderator, Programs Officer at NCEL. We had Mrs. Winnie Berry, Interim Director Principal, National College for Educational Leadership, in her substantive post as DCEO of the Ministry of Education and Youth. Mr. Kerif Clark, Senior Director Programs, National College for Educational Leadership. Ms. Terry Ann Wallace, Director Quality Assurance, National College for Educational Leadership. Dr. Joan Spencer Hernandez, Chair, NCEL Steering Committee. Dr. Bola Peju Agobola, Senior Lecturer, Educational Planning and Policy, representing Dr. Marcia Rainford, the Director of the School of Education at the University of the West Indies. Dr. Leo Gilling, President, Jamaica Diaspora of Educational Task Force, JDET. Mrs. Suzette Morrison Curtis, Systems Administrator, Lecturer, Excelsior Community College. And Mr. Adley Lewis, Principal, Seaside Primary, Deputy Chief Education Officers in the Ministry of Education and Youth. Ms. Dorrit Campbell, Interim Principal, Substantive Post DCEO, Edna Manley, College of the Visual and Performing Arts. Ms. Janet Brim, Acting Deputy Chief Education Officer, Ministry of Education and Youth. Dr. Clover Hamilton Flowers, Acting Chief Education Officer, Ministry of Education and Youth. Regional Directors, the Directors from the Regional Education Services. Mrs. Dasmin Kennedy, Region 1. Mrs. Yashika Blackwood Grant, Region 2. Ms. Carleen Sigree, Region 3. Dr. Michelle Pinnock, Region 4. Mrs. Nevadine Gallimore Miller, Region 5. Mrs. Sophia Forbes Hall, Region 6. Mr. Barrington Richards, Region 7. Officers of the Ministry of Education and Youth, other specially invited guests, and the NCEL team. All protocols have been established and will be observed for the remainder of our Leadership Day webinar. Over to you, Ms. Rankin.
Thank you so much, moderator. Good afternoon, colleagues. Meet Mrs. Suzette Morrison Curtis, an outstanding educator with 22 years at Excelsior Community College. Specializing in information technology, she holds a postgraduate degree from the University of the West Indies and certifications in AI literacy from Micro University and generative AI from Google and Vanderbilt University. Mrs. Curtis, in her multifaceted role as an SMS system support specialist and adjunct lecturer, ensures smooth system operations, leveraging her extensive experience. She holds the distinction of being a certified SAP trainer and has garnered accolades such as the SAP Winter Business Experience Games, demonstrating her unwavering dedication to ongoing professional development and learning. With a solid foundation in management information systems, Mrs. Curtis shares her insights not only in the classroom, but also through her dynamic YouTube channel. Passionately exploring AI in education, she offers a unique blend of academic excellence and practical expertise. Mrs. Curtis isn't just an educator. She's a dynamic force shaping the future of education in today's digital ecosystem. Join her journey of continuous learning, where shared insights lead to success in the ever-evolving landscape of information technology. Engage with Mrs. Suzette Morrison Curtis and experience the transformative power of education in the digital age. Your path to success starts with her guidance and expertise. Colleagues, kindly put your virtual hands together and welcome Mrs. Suzette Morrison Curtis.
Good evening, everyone. Are you hearing me well? Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, can I be given the host share privileges, please? All protocols are observed in the platform. Thank you for inviting me to this webinar. I'm so elated to be a part of this session today. Can I go ahead and share now?
Yes, you may.
Okay. Now, today's theme that was given to me, Leadership for National Development, Digital Transformation, and the research imperatives, is something that lies very intimate with me because I just recently completed my postgrad at University of the West Indies. So this presentation will be enlightened of what is happening now as it relates to the AI possibility in your classroom. So lead the charge. This is my mantra to the leaders and educators. Leading the charge, adapt or resist the impact of artificial intelligence in our classroom. So today's presentation will take a twist as I encourage everyone to look at the concepts that we're going to be looking at. We'll explore the exciting intersection of the leadership, digital transformation, and research imperatives in AI education. The session will explore some revolutionary learning and that equips future leaders that is in the room on the necessary tools for national development. So we'll be looking at the following concepts. The revolution of AI in education, the digital era that we're in now, understanding what is AI, the facts that we need to know. AI for national development, building a skilled workforce through AI literacy, ethical implications of AI in education, overcoming those challenges that there are in education, and recommendation to the academia. So first up, I have an icebreaker. It's not going to take much time. If you were given the task to have an AI wish list, what would be some of the things that you want it to do for you? Just think about that in the next 5 or 10 seconds. You can leave it in the chat and we'll discuss it further. But as I take my note and start to speak about the digital revolution in education, the world itself witnessed an unprecedented technological advancement, fundamental altering how we live, work, and learn. AI rapidly transformed education, and everyone can speak to this. When AI took over, persons were very resistant to the challenges that may come in the classroom. But not be daunted. AI-powered tools personalize learning, cater to individual needs, and enhance student engagement. It also forms tutoring system to adaptive learning platforms, fosters a dynamic and effective educational landscape, right? The digital era presents immense opportunities to revolutionize education and equipping learners and with the skills needed to thrive in the 21st century workforce, driving economic growth and societal progress. So now we're in a digital era that persons are required now to have that kind of skill set among their repertoires. Knowing AI skills is one that can carry you far. And just what Mr. Gillings was trying to put out, that in the task force professional development, they're going to be teaching persons to utilize AI. So this presentation is so fitting. So now we need to understand some of the facts, what AI is. Now, I'll just give you a brief definition of what AI is. As according to Oracle 2022, it is defined as systems or machines that mimic human intelligence to perform tasks and can iteratively improve themselves on the information they collect. So what I tell most of my students and also educators is that AI is just a tool. You give it information, it collects it, and it gives you back the information. So you own the information that you actually give it, right? Some of the things that you come across that AI is actually integrated in is like Google Maps. Your Uber system is a part of the AI integration, right? Grammarly, for most of you educators may have already known that is out there, is integrated in AI. Also, Microsoft Word. The importance of AI into education, I must look at that as well. The potential of personalized learning experiences for everyone. It enhances teaching effectively, streamline administrative tasks, thereby revolutionizing education. It also assists in virtually answering questions, and it also can create codes and improve your lesson planning as well. In the interim of your presentation, I'll show you some of those actual things that came across by using it. Some facts that we need to know. Personalized learning experience. This is how AI is taking over in education. It also has we have the remote exam proctoring. No, it is established in some third world countries. They have proctoring services that are manned by AI. They also look at exceptional query resolution. They look at how things are streamlined in the classroom now, and data analytics is at the forefront as well. So AI is here and it is being utilized in many different ways. Another factor is time saving for teachers and professors. I can tell you, I'm a testament to this. It saves time. It also acts as an assistant to your students. It can assist your educators in your actual faculty to be, when you learn the skill sets, to actually give feedback to their students. It's driven functionalities that can give feedback to students and educators. Also, help teachers to become more learning motivators as well. And also, it enhances the students' health. Now, if you're going to be building the skill force of the workforce now, empowering your faculties, members at your institution, you have to do it through AI literacy. And I'm a very big advocate of this. Now, increasingly, AI-driven world is out there. AI literacy is essential for students and faculty to understand, evaluate, and leverage AI technology effectively. Before you use a tool, you have to learn what it is. And the tool is basically something that anyone can take up and look at because it's infusing everything that we do, right? Also, as educators and administrators, we must foster AI literacy that empowers future generations to lead innovation and contribute to national development. What do I mean by this? Once you are infused with the knowledge of this type of technology, it gives you a world of variety of skill sets that you can empower your students and your faculty members to use it to their advantage and to make things a little bit more dynamic in their classroom. Now, tell me if you can see this map. I got this from one of my LinkedIn stakeholders that I actually partner with. And I wanted to share it with this today because it shows you a map of how AI is done in education, from lesson generation, instruction coaching, classroom management simulators, competency-based teaching, right? Classroom materials can be generated through AI. Evaluation and feedback can be done through the use of AI. Student support can be actually maintained through the use of AI. So learning the skill, knowing what it is useful for is very important in this digital age. Some of the benefits that, as it relates to artificial intelligence in the education sector, is accessible at any time. Most of the tools that you actually utilize AI with are accessible by just signing up or using it on an internet-based platform. Aligning with student needs, it can be used to align to student needs. The other day, I was reading an article that they infused AI into a curriculum that can be speaking to special needs students by using certain virtual reality platforms to speak to how they learn and their learning patterns. So AI is also revolutionizing how special needs education is done as well. It also enables virtual mentorship. So this is our next thing. Where we work every day, we teach every day, we have a large class. We don't have all the time to go back online and give feedback. When you utilize an AI, you can be able to streamline how you want your feedbacks to be sent to your students. And then they will have a more understanding of how things are done in their classroom in terms of how they are going forward in the concept that are being taught in the classroom. No. Some use cases that are using artificial intelligence. Mind you, these statistics were taken from around January in an article that I was reading, but it came to me that I had to share this with you because this is where we have to go. 6 billion estimated total market value of AI in education by 2024. So we're actually in it now. So AI technology is actually infused in education as we speak. Mind you, in Jamaica, we're still trying to wet our feet in what it is that we're doing in the classroom. But trust me, other countries already before us and are using it for many things: smart content creation, interactive tutoring lessons, automating teacher tasks, adaptive learning environments, curriculum material making, identifying learning gaps in the classroom as well. So there are many cases that you can use it for to make sure that what you want out of it can be done. Some implications as it turns to ethical in AI, as it used in education with AI, are data privacy. While we don't have a policy in place, and I know the task force has been actually formulated, these are the things that we have to be mindful of. And we have to make sure that as leaders in our institutions, we make sure we advocate this. It's not all prudent to be giving information online to these tools. You have to be very mindful of what it is that you're giving it. Algorithm bias. Whatever the large language model is giving, that's what it gives out. So you have to make sure that whenever you give it information to do a research or review, you check it to see if the content is clear and it is correct. Because remember, it can hallucinate. Existing inequalities in education, not all spheres of context in education will be able to utilize this type of tool. So you have to be mindful of the context or the environment that you're using the tool in. Also, ensuring equity and inclusion in the AI educations. As leaders, as I said, prioritize to actually include AI education in initiatives in your planning at school, ensuring that all students have access to the resources and opportunities to develop AI literacy skills. It is very paramount. You cannot expect students, if they're even using it, because they are using it, to know the ethical background to it if you have not even told them what it is that they need to do. Also, be responsible users of AI technology. We should advocate for the ethical and responsible use of AI technologies, promoting transparency, accountability, and ethical guidelines to mitigate potential risk. Cyber attacks are on the rise. So when you have persons utilizing the technology in your institution, you have to make sure that it regularizes itself with your policies as it relates to the private information or confidential information or data that is actually fed to these tools. Now, some potential impacts that it relates to students and teachers as it relates to AI technology. Students, it gives them personalized learning and it's self-explanatory. It creates content that's specific to each student needs, and it actually enables learning experiences. Immediate feedback to the student. Generative AI, students can receive quick feedback to anything that they actually feed that tool to give them an understanding and a strength and areas of improvement. Increase engagement. With the tool, students can be boast in terms of their student motivation and engagement. While with teachers now, time saving, improve assessment, personal feedback. These are some of the three pillars that impacts the use of it in their classroom. While we may ask the question, how is it that it improves assessment? I'll tell you. Most of us are daunted by the fact that we are teaching 4 or 5 classes and we have to create assessments, multiple choice questions. But let's look at this way. You can ask the tool to give you ideas based on the curriculum that you're using. And within less than an hour, a 25 multiple choice question is given to you. I know you have to do your fact check and put it back to the context that you're actually teaching in, and you have a paper. Overcoming some of the challenges that are existing with this tool in education. Addressing the technological barriers. Leaders must address this type of barriers, such as inadequate infrastructure, connectivity issues, limited access to devices, ensuring equitable participation in AI education initiatives. When you are advocating for this type of initiative in your institution, you have to start with training. Training is very important. Most of our education sectors, persons are resistant to use these type of tools because they are saying that it's going to replace the traditional way of teaching. No, it's not. It's there to complement what is there. Dynamically in your classroom, things will be a little bit more enhanced. I can speak of it because I've used it in my classroom at Excelsior. I've used a pilot last semester. So I can tell you that using the tool with your students have results. Managing resistance to change. As I said before, you're going to be training persons to use it. You're going to have persons that may not take to light of the use of it. They don't see their actual course that they're teaching, the need of it to be used. There are many other ways you can use AI to enhance your teaching and learning experience in the classroom. Reskilling or upskilling of educators. Administrators need to invest in the reskilling and upskilling of their programs for educators, enables them to stay abreast of the technological advancement and the best practices that are empowering them to effectively leverage AI technology in the classroom. There are a lot of initiatives that are out there that incorporates AI technology to increase the teaching and learning experience in the classroom. Why not start investing in some of these collaborations with other sectors to improve on this learning experience with your faculty? Recommendation for the academia. And this is something that this actual phrase I presented at a research day at my institution, adapt or resist. And when they heard of the term, they were saying, what? All right, let me explain. Educational institutions have reacted to this new technology, and I mean new technology, AI, in education, by either fighting it or embracing it in the face of these numerous opportunities and threats. No, instead of you fighting AI skill sets in your classroom or in your institution, I implore you to embrace it. Empower your administrators to learn the skill sets that will make them a better teacher in the long run. Instead of taking AI as a threat, your institution should analyze its advantages, use them in the favor of the students to achieve their educational objectives. If you have done, and there are studies out there that persons will look at AI as being the next cheating tool. No, it's not. I advocate heavily at my institution that students utilize the tool to embrace their creative task in them. Recently, I launched a prompt engineering course and competition at the institution, harnessing the skill set of my students to use it to solve problems that are in their everyday life. So you can use that initiative to let the students see their creative side of them and be able to use the tool effectively that way. Adopting to flexible approaches offers a chance to educate staff about the value of being familiar with the utilizing the technology in the classroom. It's not easy to speak about something if you have not taught how to use it. And all students are using more than one of these tools in the classroom. So you can't speak to something if you have not yet been taught on how to use it.
That was before you tried calling him with your phone.
So as I close, this conversation will keep open. You can reach me on all socials here. And I've put together a nice little, resource panel where you can actually see assessments, policy making suggestions in terms of how AI can revolutionize your curriculum, your assessment approach, your class management, your lesson planning. And we can keep the conversation afloat. Now, aside from my references here that I've provided here, these are some tools that I actually use. It could reduce the hard work in terms of using, so for instance, Morph AI is one of them that I use. When I want to create avatars for my presentation in my classroom, I give it a script and then I have the avatar speak to my students, giving a little more dynamic way of educating the students on certain concepts, and it worked. So with all this said, thank you for having me, and I'll now open the floor for any questions if there is any.
Mrs. Morrison Curtis, I'm not seeing any raised hands or any microphones open, but I do know I will check the chat momentarily. Thank you for that fulsome presentation. We could sit here all evening and hear more. Thank you so much. I'm seeing questions in the chat. Can this presentation be shared? There are a few other comments in the chat. Do you use Copilot to prepare your PowerPoint presentations?
Yes, I use Copilot. Actually, my presentations and anything that I do, I utilize various tools. Copilot is one of them. Most persons use ChatGPT. You can use that too, but remember now, ChatGPT has not been, the large language model is not as fluent as it was when it just came out. The paid version is a better fit, along with Gemini Bard. You can actually use those as well. Copilot just came out last November in terms of its beta series, and it's a good tool to use. It's also infused in the Microsoft Word right now. So if you have the 365 suite, it is there at your handling, as well as Grammarly as well. You can use Grammarly. It also has an AI infused in it. So when you're writing expositories and descriptive writing essays, it actually can rewrite the information for you. I showed that to some students yesterday and at our open day at Excelsior, and they were taken aback by what it can do for them. So yes, I use Copilot as well. Yes, I can. Yes, I can, Miss Christine. Yes, I can. I can make myself available. I can share my digital information again, and then we'll talk from there. Because what the advocation that I have at my institution is, AI is here. It is not something that is going to go away. Why not educate yourself? I took time off last summer, and I educated myself. I went to webinars. I certified myself. I got myself infused in what is going to happen. One of the things that I was taught at UWI, Miss Dr. Rainfall is one of my tutors, is to advocate change in anywhere that you go. And I saw it fit that education needed a change because technology is here to stay. Why not use it to enhance our technological in terms of education? The dull and boring side of things that how our students say that how we carry our courses in the classroom is gone. They want to see dynamical ways of doing it, and the tools are there. The tools are there.
Thank you so much for that response. I am seeing another question about what about Quillbot? Also, school leaders asking about training for their institutions. So I definitely know that we will share your information, your handles, and everything rises and falls on leadership. So I believe that
yes,
all the leaders online this afternoon have more open eyes to the vision
the
of
versions
AI.
of yes.
I
recently did a presentation at Pembroke Hall High School. They had a lecture series there, and it was just infused. The students there was, because the need arose that students were using the tool, but they weren't using it effectively. They didn't check their responses. So they were giving back things that the teacher, they weren't even reached to teach them yet. And I said to them, guys, you're using it, no problem, but use it effectively. Look at what you're getting. You are the actual owners of the response, because you ask it to do something, it's going to give you back a response. You have to know the content, because if you don't know, then you will receive garbage. So you have to reread all the things that you do.
Thank you so much for that response. Another positive comment in the chat. Very good presentation. Hoping that teachers, colleges, and universities are reinforcing among students in training AI complementing teaching and learning. And so we take that comment. Also wanting to find out, someone has asked in the chat about the integrity. I saw that question about the integrity of AI.
Yes, the policies are not yet on table. And this is something that I've been discussing with my immediate faculty here, is that we have to make sure that we protect ourselves academically. There are detecting softwares there that it can detect what students do utilizing the tool. There are things out there. But what you have to make sure that you do is to change how you look at plagiarism.
Yes. Most
so
definitely.
Therefore, your policies has to speak to what is plagiarism now in light of AI technology. Also, your assessments have to be retooled. I spoke about this in a webinar. It opened a can of worms. Alternative assessment is what you're going to have to do. Authentic assessments, giving the students the reasoning ability now not to go back to that AI, but to think how they got the response. Yes, the code, yes, they got this response, but how does it apply to the situation in hand? Because remember, the tool doesn't have human intelligence. It lacks common sense. It has no bars. It doesn't have ideas on its own. So some things that you're going to be doing, you're going to have to retool how you assess your students in light of the AI technology now. And then you have to equip your institution with AI policy making to make sure that what you're saying, you have something to back it. Because if a student submits a paper and you're now going to be putting them before the board, what policy do you have as an institution to say, I could not have used this? There is none. Because right now, at the regional level, they're trying to put these things together. And I'm saying we start from the grassroots, institution by institution. Every institution should try and work on their policy. In my class last year, I adopted a policy stating to my students, 25% of your work, and it was database management, so it's more coding than anything else, must be tool generated, meaning using of AI. The other must be from your thinking skill. And I did not let them just submit the theoretical. They had to present it and tell me what code did what. No, that can't be put into an AI, because when you get back the information, you have to learn how to use it. So application of thinking is there.
Most definitely. And I saw thank you so much, Mrs. Morris Curtis. I saw Dr. Flowers' hand raised. I'm going to take Dr. Flowers. And I see also Dr. Hilton Fraser. Dr. Flowers, please go ahead.
Thank you so very much. A very informative presentation with practical ideas. I was really drawn to the whole matter of students' role and how they're actually manipulating the technology. Now, I was reminded of some attainment targets in our national standards curriculum that have to do with the use of ICT tools. So I've raised my hand because I want to just make use of this opportunity to promote the use of our national standards curriculum, and in particular paying attention to the attainment targets for ICT that would have been included in the document. And a critical area is digital citizenship. So it's not just about their use of it in creative ways. It's not about, their use of it to get their tasks done, but also for them to develop the profile of a digital citizen. So I'm gonna just ask you, presenter, and everybody else present, to take a look at our national standards curriculum and see what it is portraying in terms of this aspect of education. Blessings. Thanks again.
Blessings too. Thank you
Noted,
so much for
noted.
that, Dr. Flowers, because, as leaders or leaders on the call know that with instructional leadership, the curriculum has to be managed meticulously based on the context in which schools operate, how you adapt and adopt the curriculum. So thank you for that timely reminder, Dr. Flowers, about the ICT attainment target as outlined in the NSC as we promote digital citizenship. Dr. Hilton Fraser, I'll take you quickly and then we have to move to our next segment.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Michael Patterson, and thanks a lot to the presenter. I hope I'm being heard well. I'm actually in motion, but it's perfect, spot on what Dr. Flowers just mentioned a while ago in terms of the curriculum. But we understand that sometimes as educators, as the presenter indicated, that we are resistant. And so there may be components of the curriculum that we're not paying attention to as much because of our own innate fear or resistance to the technology and the use of integrated AI. So I really appreciated the approach that the presenter took in terms of saying, listen, we really need to embrace a little bit more, have a more positive framing in terms of what it can enable us to do, and then teach our students to be more embracing, to be more responsible in its use, and then peg or assessment at a higher level of the taxonomy where they really now have to engage those critical thinking skills to use the AI. So thank you so much for your presentation.
You're very most
Dr. Hilton
welcome.
Fraser.
You're very most
We heard you
welcome.
very well, Doc, and we thank you for that point as we close out this segment. Mrs. Suzette Morrison Curtis, thank you so much. Very informative, insightful presentation, and the conversations will continue. The dialogue will continue. Thank you so much. At this time, I invite Mr. Kerif Clark, Senior Director Programs at the National College for Educational Leadership, NCEL, as we move to recognition of awardees. Over to you, Mr. Clark.
Sorry, thank you, Mrs. Michael Patterson, and good afternoon to all the colleagues on the call this afternoon. All right, so here we go with the recognition of the awardees. Leadership is perhaps one of the most researched, contested, yet, as some would argue, misunderstood disciplines. John Maxwell asserts that leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Miller et al. Suggests that social justice leadership is an activist form of leadership that seeks to transform educational environments into more equitable spaces. Ingleton suggests that the core values that we embrace as leaders should not only be evident in our actions, but should also propel us to act. Additionally, Blair, Roof, and Timmins argue that building, nurturing, and facilitating leadership capacity enriches the ability of all major stakeholders to participate in an institution capacity for broad-based participation in leadership activities. Everyone has a voice and hierarchies become flat and leadership is distributed. There are different schools of thought about leadership styles. Some people say that they are transformational leaders. Others describe themselves as servant leaders, democratic leaders, transactional leaders, situational leaders, among others. Ultimately, as educational leaders, a critical role in our journey is to inspire people and transform systems for the greater good of a nation. NCEL Leadership Day is an initiative to recognize and celebrate the tremendous work and worth of educational leaders at all levels of the system. And this year in particular, we pause to specifically highlight just a few of our system leaders in education. But before I do so, I ask you to consider a spider web. A web is often used in the area of systems thinking. This marvelous creation is used to depict the complexity of many systems, including education. If we use this approach to leadership, we will understand the integral role of system leadership and system leaders. It is on this premise that we highlight just some of our system leaders. The idea is that with the web, if one part is broken, then it affects the entire system. Our system leaders who we are acknowledging and recognizing today are holding different areas together to ensure that the education system is functioning. And so this afternoon, colleagues, we highlight just some of our system leaders. We highlight the directors of the regional services of the Ministry of Education. Leading Region 1, we have Mrs. Dasmin Kennedy, Acting Regional Director. Region 2, we have Mrs. Yashika Blackwood Grant, leading Region 2, as Acting Director. We have Ms. Carleen Sigree, Region 3, Dr. Michelle Pinnock, Region 4, Mrs. Nevadine Gallimore Miller, Acting Regional Director for Region 5, and we have Mrs. Sophia Forbes Hall for Region 6, and Mr. Barrington Richardson for Region 7. Now at this time, I will switch my screen to share with you just a few comments from officers and colleagues who have shared their thoughts on the leadership of these individuals. And so we will start with Region 1. All right, so I'll go again. Region 1. Okay, here we go.
Several words come to mind when I think of my team leader, Mrs. Dasmin Kennedy, Director of Regional Educational Services, Region 1. Words such as inclusive, authentic, hands-on, adaptable, resilient, empathetic, and accommodating. She is the kind of leader who creates an atmosphere where every member of the team feels valued. You know, one of the things I love about Mrs. Kennedy is that when challenges come, we will hear her echoing her favorite word, telling us that we need to pivot. And for me, this speaks to her resilience. She's able to recognize various challenges, and she ably encourages the team to regroup, and she also seeks input from other members of the team when necessary. She is also that director who is going to get in the field with her officers. She gives the support that is needed, and she will be out there houting out the fires, with the officers, as well as, using those moments to really big up her officers so that every member of the team can be motivated and encouraged to continue to do the work. That's my regional director, Mrs. Kennedy.
Our regional director, Mrs. Jasmine Kennedy, is the leader who simply always encourages us to be the best version of ourselves, regardless of the situation. She simply holds us to a higher level, a higher standard, and that standard is nothing but the epitome of excellence. She works tirelessly to ensure that all members know that they're part of a team, and that as a team, we will achieve excellence because each member carries excellence. That is Jasmine Kennedy, our regional director.
Regional Director Jasmine Kennedy has continued to epitomize what Region 1 stands for. Region 1, the epitome of excellence. The region thanks Mrs. Kennedy for her stellar leadership. And on this International Leaders' Day, we in Region 1 salute Mrs. Jasmine Kennedy, Regional Director of Region 1, wishing her a great day. Continue to lead from the heart and to lead with heart. God bless our Regional Director.
All right. Thank you, colleague. And if you are from Region 1, I use this opportunity to invite you in the chat and through the emojis to celebrate our regional director acting for Region 1, Mrs. Jasmine Kennedy. And with that, we then move to Region 2 for Mrs. Yashika Blackwood.
Mrs. Yashika Blackwood Grant has been acting as our regional director, and she has proven to be the epitome of excellence. Mrs. Blackwood Grant is always ready to extend the hand of care in our region. Our care mantra is evident in her thoughtful gestures, not just to staff, but to all whom she interacts with on a daily basis. Never afraid to face challenges, but with each challenge, her smile and the words of wisdom often put you at ease. She's supportive of both her present and past colleagues, and she leads with empathy, pouring into others, and always ready to empower her team members to accomplish their goals. Thank you, Mrs. Blackwood Grant. I appreciate you, Shahini.
Region 2 Care Bear, Yashika Blackwood Grant. She's brilliance personified with a heart that will melt you if you get close enough. She's purpose-driven and continues to make an impact, one life at a time. I salute Yashika Blackwood Grant.
Mrs. Blackwood Grant is my regional director. She's someone who is very supportive of whatever you are doing. She's easy to talk to. She has a pleasant personality and she's very approachable. Miss Blackwood Grant is a great team player, and I know that the award that she's getting, she's deserving of it.
Ms. Grant, you are such a champion for students with special needs in Region 2. I applaud you. You are genuine in your seeking to include them in all aspects. You really empower us as officers, and You lead by example in terms of the care aspect of the region of care. We love you.
This is Tiona Baker, Technical Development Officer assigned to Region 2. Mrs. Yashika Blackwood Grant epitomizes the concepts of a good leader. She demonstrates fairness, accountability, and flexibility. She encourages collaboration and always seeks to strengthen her team by providing and facilitating opportunities for capacity building. Her communication skills are diverse and complements her warm personality that enables her to function effectively in any atmosphere. A well-deserved award, Mrs. Blackwood Grant.
She is a phenomenal woman. Mrs. Yashika Blackwood Grant, an excellent leader at Region 2, the region of care. She's committed, accountable, she is resilient and efficient.
Thank you once again, colleagues. And again, I invite you to use the chat to celebrate our Acting Regional Director for Region 2, Mrs. Yashika Blackwood Grant. At this time, to remind colleagues to pay attention to your microphones. Thank you. At this time, we move to Region 3, Ms. Carleen Sigree.
I deem it a pleasure to use this opportunity to recognize the efforts of my regional director, Miss Carleen Joy Sigree, JP, one RD, one who is caring and loving and attentive, one who is sensitive to the needs and the well-being of our staff, all levels of staff. It is not typical for a leader to know exactly what the abilities, the capabilities are of every staff member. And over the years, having worked with Miss Sigree, I would have noted her efforts to ensure that every staff member knows that she cares about them. For example, she uses every moment that she gets, either in staff meetings, either it is in a briefing, either it is in her WhatsApp or any social media platform. She uses every opportunity to introduce her staff. She uses the opportunity to recognize her staff for the level of work that they put in, and to remind them that self-care is important, and coming from the guidance and counseling unit, that in particular is of utmost importance to me and to our unit as a whole. I want to say to Miss Carleen Joy Sigree that you are doing an excellent job in the region of Trailblazers. And indeed, we are trailblazing because of the excellent leadership that you provide at the regional level. And of course, when it comes on to being a leader on the national stage, by far, RD, you stand as the one RD that lead from the front, from the side, and from behind. To the NCEL, please use this opportunity to recognize our regional director. Thank you for doing so. And big up yourself, Miss Sigree. From the Guidance and Counseling Unit, Region 3.
Today, I am pleased to help celebrate the regional director, Miss Carleen Sigree, as a leader. Miss Sigree is a dynamic and proactive leader. She knows how to connect with her constituents. She's very goal-oriented and believes in capacity building. As such, she endeavors to ensure that her team is ready and capable of completing our duties with efficiency and fidelity. Today, We salute you, Miss Degree, leader extraordinaire.
Miss Degree is an exceptional leader who inspires excellence through her strategic vision, decision-making, and genuine care for the Region 3 team. Her open and collaborative approach empowers us to reach new heights. Under her remarkable guidance, marked by unwavering commitment and compassion, Region 3 soars. We celebrate Miss Degree's outstanding leadership.
In an education system that now requires that leadership should transcend mere management and administration, Ms. Carlin Segree stands as a beacon of inspiration. She is a visionary whose unwavering commitment to the improvement of the educational services in Region 3 and the well-being of stakeholders illuminates the path towards a brighter future. She has an unparalleled focus and an unyielding drive. She navigates the tumultuous waters of change within our education system, leading and steering this team towards greatness and a relentless pursuit of excellence, operating at a high level. Her indomitable spirit, fueled by compassion and foresight, not only gives us as the region of trailblazers a unique characteristic, but it also nurtures a culture of care and accountability. On behalf of the school supervision team, I salute Ms. Carlin Segree, our Regional Director Extraordinaire, on this day when we celebrate our leaders.
Today, I celebrate the leadership of Miss Carlin Segree. Miss Carlin Segree, she leads by example. She is a role model and she offers quality service. She has several years experience and demonstrates expertise in what she does.
Miss Segree is an exceptional leader who inspires excellence through her strategic vision, decision-making, and genuine care for the Region 3 team. Her open and collaborative approach empowers us to reach new heights. Under her remarkable guidance, marked by unwavering commitment and compassion, Region 3 soars. We celebrate Ms. Segree's outstanding leadership.
Thank you, colleagues. And there we have it for Region 3. And I see Ms. Segree in the chat reacting and responding. At this time, then, we move to Region 4, Dr. Michelle Pinnock.
Dr. Michelle Pinnock is a leader with her heart. She leads with the mind, the body, and the soul. She believes in holistic development, and though she is greatly concerned with academic endeavors, the person within is her main focus.
Affirming Dr. Pinnock's innovative and future-ready leadership in Region 4. Dr. Pinnock, we want to also affirm the style and the character that you bring as a leader. Always calm, always ready, always available to your officers, assisting them with the tools of the trade whenever you see necessary. You know us all by name, you know us all by our styles, our preferences, and the little traits that we bring to our everyday activities. And with that, you have given us, that trust to execute our duties. And where necessary, you would add your flavor, giving us also additional tools that we may need to be at our best. Thank you for always being so calm,
Thank you for always being so trusting. Thank you for understanding us and understand the work that we do. Thank you for reminding us constantly that we are indeed educators and educational leaders. And as such, we must always remain on the cutting edge of educational leadership, on innovations in education, and also on pedagogy. Respect and one love. And I wish you all the best.
Yvonne Hardy, Region 4 Education Officer. Our regional director loves technology, and she believes, just like David Warlick, we need technology in every classroom and in every student and teacher's hand because it is the pen and paper of our time.
Dr. Michelle Pinnock is a leader who has fully embraced a growth mindset and encourages all her officers to do the same. She leads by example and has taken on a posture of innovation. I find her to be very, very tech savvy and is also one who is not afraid to embrace a coming technological change that will soon sweep education.
And we celebrate Dr. Michelle Pinnock in Region 4. We move to Region 5 to celebrate Mrs. Navadine Gallimore Miller.
Meet our exemplary acting regional director, Mrs. Navadine Gallimore Miller. With her unwavering dedication and integrity, Navadine exemplifies impeccable work ethics. Her tireless commitment to excellence drives every project forward, fostering a culture of collaboration and respect among the regional team and all stakeholders that she serves. Through her transparent communication and passion for her craft, Navadine inspires us all to strive for greatness. With her leadership, we not only achieve our goals, but exceed them, leaving a lasting legacy of professionalism and achievement. Navadine, thank you for setting the standard and guiding us towards success.
Our regional director, Mrs. Navadine Gallimore Miller, is Miss Cool, Calm, and Collective. She's very supportive, very engaging. She's someone who will listen. She doesn't get angry easily, doesn't get flustered at all. Nothing seems to bother her. And she always seems to be in control of whatever situation and is always ready with an opinion, with a suggestion, a solution.
Now, my regional director is a leader who I consider to be very compassionate, very pleasant personality. I believe that she creates an environment where, for me, I am very comfortable having a conversation with her. I am very comfortable sharing with her, and I really do appreciate that leadership, because in those discussions that I have with her, she's able to provide insight and she's able to give an honest and fair critique that better guides me in what I do.
Hi Anita, good evening, Wendell here. I would say Mrs. Miller in her leadership role is blooming well. She's task-oriented and inclusive and deeply dedicated in advancing MOUI policies. For consultation, Mrs. Miller is approachable, accommodating, and accessible in a selfless manner.
And that is for Region 5. Commendations to you, RD Gallimore Miller. We move then to Region 6 to celebrate and to highlight Mrs. Sophia Forbes Hall.
Mrs. Sophia Forbes Hall is absolutely amazing. In my capacity as Senior Education Officer, I work very closely with Mrs. Forbes Hall. She has excelled in her role as Regional Director, exhibiting one of the highest levels of productivity I have seen in my nearly 30 years as an educator. Sophia Forbes Hall produces a high volume of work while consistently maintaining high standards for quality and accuracy. Her upbeat personality and engaging personal style enables her to interact effectively with her stakeholders and staff. She is very well organized and keeps track of the details necessary to run an efficient office. It is with a sense of pride and my pleasure to recognize my supervisor, my leader, my regional director on this day. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final regional director to be highlighted this afternoon, Mr. Barrington Richardson, RD Region 7.
The quintessential leader who exemplifies that his main purpose on earth is to serve those whom he leads. The altruistic Barrington Richardson exemplifies the characteristics of a true leader as he leads from the heart. As in the words of Lisa Cash Hansen, Mr. Richardson guides his team without force in a direction or decision that leaves everyone feeling empowered and accomplished. Even as he uses data to drive his decision-making processes, he is never quick to act without giving everyone the opportunity to let their voices be heard. He acts with fairness and applies wisdom in all situations presented before him. In his quest to maximize the potential of all who are a part of his team, he lives by the mantra, people of value add value to people. We salute you, Mr. Barrington Richardson, as you continue to guide the region of purpose where we are positioned to serve.
So at this time, colleagues, we use the opportunity to once again thank our regional directors or directors of regional services in the Ministry of Education and Youth. They have worked and continue to work to ensure that the system is functioning, that issues are dealt with, that opportunities are seized, to ensure that we continue in our efforts to transform education in Jamaica. To add to our awardees or honorees this afternoon, we also use this opportunity to highlight our Deputy Chief Education Officers. We have Ms. Dorrit Campbell. She is the interim principal at Edna College of the Visual and Performing Arts. However, her substantive post is DCEO in the ministry. We also have Ms. Janet Brim, DCEO with the ministry, her substantive post RD for Region 2. We have Dr. Clover Hamilton Flowers. You heard from her earlier. She is acting ACEO or ACEO, acting DCEO, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the Ministry of Education in the curriculum unit. And we also have Mrs. Winnie Berry in her substantive post as DCEO, but serving as interim director principal at NCEL. And to celebrate our RDs, we're dedicating this song to them. So with that, colleagues, we celebrate our honorees this afternoon, our DCEOs and our regional directors. And you can look out for the NCEL team in short order to meet with you and to present to you a token of our appreciation for the work that you continue to do in education. I thank you. If you're on the call, I invite you to open your videos and perhaps say a quick word before we move into the next segment of this afternoon's session.
Thank you so much, Mr. Clark. I believe it's after 5, and so persons may be commuting. So on the air of caution, they're not able to open their microphones or cameras to greet us, but we know that the greetings are coming through. We feel the warmth. At this time, we will have our research presentations. We have Mr. Adlai Lewis, Principal, Seaside Primary, Mr. Kerif Clark, Senior Director, Programs, NCEL. Over to you, Mr. Smith.
Good afternoon, colleagues, and welcome to this segment of our Leadership Day, where we will have presentations from Mr. Adlai Lewis, Principal of Seaside Primary. He will be presenting on the topic, Principal's Perspective, Online Student Engagement and Teacher Effectiveness. And Mr. Kerif Clark, our Senior Director of Programs, he will be presenting on the topic, now that we have ascended to principalship, insights from Jamaican principals. So a little bit about our presenter, our first presenter, Mr. Adlai Lewis. He is a Justice of the Peace and, as said before, the principal of Seaside Primary School. He has been an educator for over 17 years and he has been in administration for 12 years. He has served as a vice principal and then principal. He has completed NCEL programs. So he's a graduate of our program. He has done the Effective Principals Training Program, rounds 1 and 2. He has also child-friendly school leadership course, and he was also in the Inclusive School Leadership Training Program. He completed that program as well. He also serves as an assessor in the Aspiring Principals Program. And in terms of his academic accolades, he has completed a master's in educational leadership and management at the University of the West Indies. He has also completed a fellowship in Japan in the area of mathematics and science teaching methodology. And he is the chairman of QEC 18. Our colleagues, let us now welcome Mr. Adlai Lewis as he presents on his topic for this afternoon.
Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. All protocols observed as was established earlier by Programs Officer Mrs. Camille. Let me thank the NCEL team for inviting me here this afternoon on this platform to share the little that I found out or the little that I learned over the period of conducting this conceptual paper. As was explained to you earlier, this paper is about online student engagement and teacher effectiveness. And we're going to delve into what this entails and what fruits were born from this research. This afternoon, I know that there are educational leaders on this platform, and we would have heard presentations on AI, and of course, it is only fitting that we look at teacher effectiveness coupled with these tools that we are now interacting with in the virtual space. Just trying to get my slide going. Yes, thank you. So as a background to this conceptual paper, we were thrust onto the online or the virtual space back in 2020. And this was caused by the pandemic, COVID-19 pandemic. Now, this research links student engagement online to teacher effectiveness from an administrator's perspective. As school leaders, we often try to engage our staff in growth and development sessions to improve their pedagogical skills. Just a minute. I'm having a little difficulty with my laptop here. Just a minute, please. Okay, Camille, can you hear me, please? Just let me know if I'm clear.
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Lewis. You're clear.
Okay, thank you. So being thrust online, we often question how effective the online instructional process was for us as teachers and as administrators. We wanted to know, in fact, if our students were actually benefiting from the programs that were offered in that modality. Knowing what characterizes an effective teacher is also important in improving the instruction that is provided to students. And that is something that this conceptual paper looked at. So the purpose of the research was to examine how research has proven linkage between student engagement and teacher effectiveness in an online environment. Now, the questions that were looked at include what relationship exists between student engagement online and teaching methodology? How do theories differ on what constitutes an effective teacher in online classes? So we have to establish the standard or the groundwork as to what constitutes an effective teacher in the virtual space. The research aims to reflect upon the most significant models. And of course, Burnett and Meacham, 2017, proposed to assess teaching effectiveness through the student's point of view. Even though this research said the principal's perspective, we also took it on a three-pronged approach where we looked at the student point of view, the administrator's point of view, and from a teacher's perspective as well. The framework for this conceptual paper was born out of careful study and, of course, the review of various literatures that would have provided the wealth of knowledge needed to understand these two phenomena included in the topic. And those two would have been engagement, online engagement, and of course, teacher effectiveness. Those are the two variables that we were to establish and look at in deriving at this topic and looking at the literature. Now, this framework, as you can see, is looking at one aspect where students' understanding and engagement is concerned. Then on another side, it is looking at the teacher's skills and competencies. And we found that there was a direct correlation between students' engagement and teachers' skills and competencies, because the more competent the teacher is in a virtual or an online space, is the more engaged the students were. Now, models are there on teacher effectiveness, and that was also used to look at what are the acceptable norms and standards for our teachers in giving instruction on in the virtual space, in that particular modality. So student interaction would have been a very key area or key focal point in establishing our teachers' effectiveness. And it comes right back to the characteristics of an effective teacher and what students find engaging. We have to bridge the gap in that regard. So basically, in carrying out this conceptual paper, the literature was reviewed. The variables were looked at, as I highlighted earlier with you. And there were over 25 articles that were reviewed. Then, of course, 8 of those, it was narrowed down to about 8 of those that proved to be very relevant to the topic and would have given much insight and information that is necessary to draw the conclusions that would help us to understand the topic much better, or to prove or answer the questions mentioned earlier. The search, like I said, was narrowed down to 8 basic articles. The formulation of the literature matrix then outlined the main theory, the methodology, conclusion was drawn, and the results of each source was made as well. What did we find out? Teachers must be able to engage students cognitively. And of course, the literature would have highlighted the fact that there is teacher competency, there is student cognitive engagement, there's student emotional engagement, and there's also student behavioral engagement. So all of this will of course help us to understand student engagement and of course teacher effectiveness in that regard. So to engage students cognitively, we must see where they are thinking outside of the box. They're critical thinkers, as is necessary through the national standards curriculum that we now have in all our Jamaican schools. There's also the school of thought that teachers must have what is described as an encouraging attitude to inspire success among students during online learning. And this was one of the major challenges that we faced during the pandemic when we were online fully. Teachers would have said to their administrators that some students are logged in, but they're not responding, and the myriad of problems, they really cause us to see many challenges coming forward. So it is quite important that students are engaged in a way so that we inspire success and we might inspire their active participation in what is happening in the lesson. There's also the fact that teachers who establish inviting learning environments, they get higher standards, they get more progress, they get more basically out of their students. Engaging them on these inviting learning environments would have learned some of those tools and I think AI came on a little bit later after we were fully online. Now, when we were online, we'd have learned about some of the Google Suite tools that we could use in our engaging sessions with our students. And so academic progress would have been higher for those who had those inviting learning environments. There were always games and quizzes and all sorts of tools utilized to keep students actively engaged in whatever concepts are being taught. Now, the teacher's ability to engage students in a combination of what they do and of course, who they are as a teacher is also equally important. Now, so if you are an approachable teacher, like we heard about most of our RDs just now, that they are team players and they are inviting, they're approachable. The teacher has to, who the teacher is also affects how students are engaged by them and through these virtual learning spaces as well. What else did we find out? Garrison, Anderson, and Archer, 2001, developed what is called a community of inquiry, COI. Now, this model, the COI model, speaks to three presence for effective engagement. There's a social presence, there's a teaching presence, and there's a cognitive presence. And I spoke a little bit about the cognitive just now. Social came out in that we spoke about how approachable the teacher might be and how that will affect their effectiveness in the virtual space. The learning environment, whether virtual or physical, enjoys similar or most of the same set of principles as it relates to student engagement. There are a few differences though. When we think about teacher competencies and skills in navigating platforms for learning, we're essentially saying that for successful delivery, we must take into consideration how comfortable he or she is on the platform and using the tools that are available. And we would have seen growth among our teachers while they navigated those learning spaces during the pandemic. And we don't want those to go through the door. We want to utilize and we want to integrate them into our present day situations, as most schools are doing now. Our presenter earlier, our guest speaker, would have spoken to how she would utilize her various learning tools, ICT tools, in the classroom space. And Dr. Flowers spoke to that aspect of the curriculum as well. An educator's disposition and posture in an online space helps to build his or her social, cognitive, and learning presence. So we spoke about the presence just now. And your presence on the online platform is very important. And we saw where this would have dictated to students what is also acceptable and what is not acceptable in terms of how they operated on these various online modalities, these learning spaces. So what are the implications? And I'm wrapping up now, so don't worry, I am not going to be long. Just want to share a little bit about what I learned in carrying out this research. The implications, as principals, as school leaders, we must be keen on creating an environment in which students and teachers feel respected by one another. And of course, this creates an openness required for behavioral, cognitive, and emotional engagement. Students will respond well to teachers, and it mitigates and minimizes the nuances that we would experience and some of those complaints that we would have gotten about how students were operating using these virtual platforms. Then on the student side of it, the use of more innovative tools and technologies within the learning environment will promote a highly engaging and stimulating learning experience for our students. So the more interesting and stimulating the environment is, and the topic we will see an increase in their success as well as their involvement. Teachers should seek to improve their interaction with students, and this will assist in the improvement of student engagement and, of course, teacher effectiveness. The likelihood of student engagement and participation is there. So we'll see increased participation, and with increased participation, there is this ongoing feedback where you're able to know if learning is taking place and taking place effectively. It is my perspective that teacher effectiveness is in an online space is coherently dependent on methodologies used to engage students and create a positive learning environment as though it was a physical classroom. With that capability, we know that we can achieve much and we can get our students to be successful. With that capability, we know, in fact, that our students' performance will be much greater and student success will be at an all-time high. Much research needs to be conducted at the primary level. That was what I found. And of course, the education system would need to test the effectiveness of online learning on this particular age group. We need more research in this area. We need more information at the primary level because all of us, all levels of the educational system, we were thrust onto the online modality, online platform. And so we now need to look back and look at the lessons learned from this experience and how we can shape our educational landscape for future and for national development as is postulated by this evening's seminar. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's the little knowledge that I have gained in doing this conceptual paper, and I do hope that somehow I've inspired someone to give it some more thought as to how student engagement and teacher effectiveness is correlated and how we can improve our delivery on the virtual space. Thank you.
Oh, and thank you for that presentation, Mr. Lewis. And you touched on some very relevant points, and I know our colleagues are gearing up to ask questions. But before you do so, I would like to engage you once more with another presentation. All right, given the time, we're going to move into the next one, and then we'll field questions thereafter. Our presenter for this topic, Sir Kerry Clark, our Senior Director of Programs at the National College for Educational Leadership. He has served as a programs officer for 5.5 years. He had direct responsibility for the Aspiring Principals Program and Leadership and School Policy. He's also the president. He's also the president of the Association of Graduate Researchers in Education at the University of the West Indies, Mona, between the years 2018 to 2022. He has presented at numerous research conferences to include the University of Toronto in Canada, help me pronounce this, Daugavpils University in Latvia, all right, and the University of Guyana. He is a published researcher in the areas of teacher education and supervision, education for sustainable development, and curriculum reform. And he's also pursuing a PhD in teacher education. Colleagues, let us welcome our next presenter, Mr. Kerry Clark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Smith. And again, I thank the colleagues for being on the call this afternoon. So I will go straight into my presentation, which is titled, Now That We've Ascended to Principalship, Insights from Jamaican Principals. And I decided to undertake this research last year as a means of understanding what it meant for us as a nation, having NCEL being established and having training for principals or trainings for principals. What were some of the insights that we could benefit from in terms of moving forward? And so I will take you through this presentation in that regard. So for this presentation, I'll share just a bit in terms of the background and selected literature. I'll also share with you the methodology and research questions, and then I'll move into the findings. And so what were some of the things that inspired this study or inspired me to conduct this study? First and foremost, it was on the premise that in 2004, we had our first national education reform, and that was undertaken, well, led by Ray Davis. And so coming out of that, we had the 2004 Task Force Report on Education Reform. And a number of things were put forward coming out of this report. One of the important things that we need to consider is that when task forces are established to undertake reform in education, they are premised on a number of things. Two of these would include that education reforms are undoubtedly one of the most complex and controversial subjects when we talk about changing things or reforming things or making things better in education. And this is because of the effects that are generated when we talk about a society, given that we have numerous sections and segments of society and different beliefs. Importantly, though, the purpose of any education reform is to transform school structures with the ultimate aim of raising the quality of education in a country. When we talk about a reform that is effective, there are three things that are proposed in the literature. There is one, well-designed policies or programs. Two, institutions, and of course, we can't leave out people, need to be trained to effectively implement reform. And three, political alignment around that reform of education. Now, going back to the 2004 Task Force report, we had different areas that were identified that needed to be targeted, one of which would have been governance and management of the education system. We also had curriculum, teaching, and learning support. We also had stakeholder engagement and finance. And of course, since this report, we would have had the 2021 Patterson-led education reform report that would have added to the areas on which we need to focus. Hence, for example, the Trend Initiative being promoted by the ministry to implement those 7 pillars of education reform. So coming out of the 2004 Task Force report, NCEL, along with other agencies, were established as transformational vehicles to move education forward. So the National College for Educational Leadership was pretty much tasked to design training programs in leadership and management for our school leaders. And so we were established in 2011 by a cabinet decision to train pre- and in-service school leaders. And the Aspiring Principals program in particular is designed and implemented in collaboration with the University of the West Indies, in particular the Mona School of Business and the School of Education. Why have I singled out this program? This program was singled out because the participants for this research were taken from this program in particular. And so when we talk about the literature in terms of principalship, it's about the literature, Leetwood and colleagues argue that leadership entails influencing one's colleagues to act in ways likely to help accomplish the short-term goals and the long-term directions considered desirable for schools. In addition to that, we look at the idea that there are mounting calls from policymakers and stakeholders to ensure that leadership programs or educational leadership programs are relevant to practice. we also found through the literature by a study done by Professor Hutton from the University of the West Indies, he concluded that a principalship training program for secondary leaders is important. And in his paper, in his study, he suggests that the establishment of NCEL would also be able to expand the reach of leadership in more deliberate ways and comprehensive ways. The study was premised on the idea of complexity theory, with the understanding again is that leadership is very complex, it is very dynamic, and has many different tentacles that will come at you as a leader. And so that was the theoretical framework that was used for the study. So in terms of the methodology, the study was designed as a qualitative study. And so as a qualitative study, I collected data through semi-structured interviews, one-on-one interviews, and data were analyzed using a thematic analysis approach. In addition to that, I would have received approval from the Ministry of Education to conduct the study, and I would have received consent from the participants. And so for this study, I engaged 4 participants, again in keeping with a qualitative study, the design. And so I engaged 4 principals who would have pursued the Aspiring Principals program and who would have ascended to leadership. And so we have Nicole, of course, these are pseudonyms, who had 5 years of experience as a principal and as a principal of a primary and infant school, and she works in a rural community. We have Dion, another female, 3 years of leadership experience as principal and head of a primary and infant school. And she described her community as being volatile urban community. We also had Leroy, the only male in the study. He had 1 year of experience as principal at a primary level in an urban community. And we had Yannick, another female with 8 months of principalship experience, again, within an urban community. And so the experiences of these principals ranged from 8 months to 5 years. So what did I want to find out with this study? There are 4 questions that really drove the study. 1, how do principals describe the training offered by NCEL? 2, how aligned do principals perceive their training with NCEL and the realities of principalship? 3, how do principals perceive their impact on their schools? And 4, what lessons do principals believe are critical to principalship? And so I will answer the questions in that regard based on the findings of the study. So going back to question 1, how do principals describe their training offered by NCEL? And so the first response to this was that collectively, the principals believe that the NCEL training was relevant, insightful, enriching, and rewarding. And these are some of the testimonials that you're seeing in blue. Nicole, for example, said, I found it so interesting. There was so much information that was coming at us, but it was coming at us that we could absorb it. Our lecturers were good. We were with a batch of like-minded professionals. We worked beautifully together in groups, and it made the experience enriching and rewarding. Leroy said, well, there are many words to describe my experience, but to be as succinct as possible, it has been a most impactful one. When you go into a program that gives you the material, the case studies, the tools that you need to do well, it makes the world of a difference. And of course, we also had Yannick adding to say that it was very uplifting and fulfilling. It was an eye-opener to a lot of stuff, especially the different modules. In addition to answering that question with that response, some principals believe that aspects of the training were rigorous. And so we have Dion who shared that it was rigorous especially because it was during COVID and everything was done online. Having to work online, being placed in groups where you have to do group assignment and you don't know the people you're working with. Yannick added that the interview process was so rigorous. It was like, why the interview is so rigorous? But I really never understood that NCEL was building me in the sense of where I am going. Now to answer research question 2, the alignment of the program and principalship, or the realities of principalship. That question is answered as follows. Principals perceive their training as adequate to their... All right, so principals perceive their training as adequate for their ascension to principalship. And so we have Leroy saying, the training I would have received would have reminded me that I am operating a government institution. And so I must recognize that I am an accountable and accounting officer. And so I would have been guided by the policies of the ministry in that regard. And Yannick said in her interview, to be honest, everything that I have learned from NCEL, I can use now. And what I appreciate about NCEL, the leadership that you learn is not just for education purpose. It can be applied everywhere. In addition, some principals believe that the program could be strengthened in areas of financial management and the field experience, or the practicum supervision. And so Dion said, one of my disappointments with the program is that this is where I think some improvement I need to be made is in the financial aspect, because we're thrown into the position and the ministry expects you to do everything. And again, colleagues, if we're making that link, we're seeing where the Patterson report also highlighted this as an area that we need to bolster in leadership capacities. In addition, Yannick also indicated the only part of the program that I had a little itch with was with the field experience. You see, like when you are doing a big research, you have a coach, persons were saying that we didn't have that. Unless you really know someone, like for example, how you would call on, say, Mr. Clark, I don't understand that. And so we're seeing where the participants believe that areas could be bolstered for this particular program. The third research question, how do principals perceive their impact on their schools? Principals build and maintain good relationships with their communities, with their school communities. So Leroy, for example, shares, to my surprise, once I spoke, once I provided the support in terms of data, I got support. I got the support from the teachers. I got the support from the NCEL staff. I got the support from vendors. The vendors, they know me by name. I have a WhatsApp group with them or for them. I would have gotten the church to invest in our school. In addition, principals boast a number of successes, including addressing concerns raised by the National Education Inspectorate, increasing visibility of their school, and building capacities of their parents. And the final research question that I examined, what lessons do principals believe are critical to principalship? These were the responses. So principals believe that aspirants should ensure that they are intentional about becoming principals who are servant leaders. So Nicole says, leadership is about being a servant leader. And Dion believes that if you are weak emotionally, principalship is not for you. And to conclude, principals recommend that aspirants should pursue training. Nicole suggests that the APP, or the Aspiring Principals Program, prepares you best to ascend to principalship. And Yannick believes that what they have learned, that she has learned a lot from the program, and everyone should pursue training despite the name of the Aspiring Principals Program. With that, I conclude. These are the selected references for my presentation. I thank you so very much for listening. Mr. Smith, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark, for that very interesting and informative presentation. Colleagues, I'm given the time. I want to open the floor to you so you can pose your questions in the chat. Yes, overall, I would say, colleagues, the presentations are in line with our theme for this afternoon. Leadership for National Development, Digital Transformation, and Research Imperatives. We looked at how we engage students online, teachers, and the principal's perspective. And then we also look at how we prepare our leaders for such endeavors, being innovative, being ready to take on the change that we're experiencing in terms of greater adaptation for technology and the use of the various tools to enhance learning and to increase access and inclusivity so we can cater to all students with their varying learning needs. And our guest speaker did mention special education, and that's an area that we know technology, can make a very big impact for students who have those special needs. Okay, so I am looking for the questions, and if so, you may also open your mic, identify yourself. I think I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Jode Smith, Programs Officer at NCEL. Okay, so I'm seeing great presentations. All right, good. Very good presentation. Let me see. Okay, so I'm seeing a question from Dr. Fraser. Did you consider including secondary level principals, or was your sample based on convenience? It would be interesting to see how their perspectives may differ.
Thank you for the question. And it's an interesting question and interesting perspective. As Mr. Lewis shared in his presentation, there is a need to do more research at the primary level. And so it was a deliberate attempt to get the perspectives and the insights from primary level principals to see what their realities were in terms of their training, and having ascended to principalship, what insights they would have. So it was a deliberate attempt to focus on the primary school principals for this particular study. But I do agree that it would be interesting to do a comparative study looking at the secondary school principals as well.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. And I am seeing some more commendations to the presenters. Okay, I'm seeing a question here. How did the complexity theory align with your findings? And I'm going to say this particular question. Is it to a specific researcher, or is it open to? I don't know.
I believe that
I will
one
let
is
you guys,
mine.
I'll let you answer.
I believe that one is mine in terms of the complexity theory.
Yes.
So the complexity theory, it came out more with research questions 2 and 3 in terms of the realities of being in the principal position and what it requires. So for example, Leroy spoke about navigating the different stakeholder groups and having vendors on the campus and having to relocate them when he just went to that school, how he navigated that. Oftentimes when we talk about principalship or leadership in educational institutions, we talk about the instructional leader, as in leading curriculum instruction, but not understanding too that community leadership is also important. And so how we navigate those stakeholder groups is also important. And that is how the complexity theory would have figured into or be aligned with the study and the findings.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Clark. And I want to, Mr. Lewis, I want to make a point here from your presentation, and you spoke about an educator's disposition and posture in an online space. And how this helps and builds his teaching. I want you to just give us some examples of how teachers could improve on this this posture in that online space?
So, thank you for that question, Jody Smith. In a virtual space, and we're talking in particular at the primary level now, we believe that the posture that the teacher maintains involves one that brings into account the active participation of their students. So even though we're not in a physical classroom environment, we are expecting that the modality would not change the fact that you need student-centered lessons. And so how you approach a lesson is very important. So students should be able to complete activities, give their opinions. They should be able to unmute their microphones, interact with the teacher. I think I mentioned that as well. It came out in the literature. And also just how you present yourself on the platform too is important. Like now we're having a presentation, and each time there's a presenter, the camera is on, your microphone is clear, there's no background noise, how you're dressed for the presentation. You can't be lying down in bed while you're having your online class, and that's the setting. So you want to maintain a certain posture even though you are using the virtual space. And so all of that is taken into account, and that is something that we really have to consider even here at the primary level. It's considered at other levels, and it is no different when we're doing our presentations at the primary school level as well.
Okay, thank you for that response. And one of the things that I thought about, and in your research at the primary level, adult learners, they can focus better online, and in terms of the engagement, I've heard persons at the tertiary level complain about being bored in a online in an online classroom. So I would imagine that it takes more effort to keep primary level students engaged.
And that is so true, especially with the age group that we have dealing with. We talked about 8-year-olds, talking about 10-year-olds, and the myriad of other challenges that come with developmental stages. You have to take all of that into account. And so those online quiz and games and all the other tools that were mentioned in the presentation would be very useful. And so teacher competence, that was one of the components. Teacher competence in the virtual space is critical to the progression of the lesson and also student attainment.
Yes, thank you, sir. And when we look at the role of the principal, the educational leader in monitoring and observing and looking at the pedagogical approach of the teachers, right? It is very critical that they are able to, as you say, identify those areas, and having knowledge too of the different tools that you can use. You could engage your teachers and have the necessary professional development and coaching as is necessary.
So true. And I want to highlight that in the topic it says from a principal's perspective, and it was because it was something that I faced with personally, trying to decipher, trying to come upon some certain standards that are already established in terms of how effective or what argues an effective teacher in the virtual space. And so doing this research really opened my eyes to the fact that there's a whole repository, there's a whole repertoire of information out there that we just need to tap into. And so I was very much educated as to the fact that this body of knowledge existed even before the whole genesis of this COVID-19 pandemic and the fact that we were all thrust online.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lewis. And yes, and I won't engage in this phase too long, colleagues, given the time. But then, Mr. Clark, in terms of when we look at these, the needs of our educational leaders and the role of NCEL in ensuring that persons are prepared for the new education system, because as you can see, the world is far ahead of us in terms of the adaptation of most of these AI tools and various technological tools. They have been using it years before COVID, actually. And, you know, we are still slow to adopt these. Yes. So.
Yes. And just to respond briefly to that statement, Mr. Smith, as it relates to, again, the idea of transformation. So we embarked on this journey in 2004 as a nation, and we've continued with the Patterson Report. And we are seeing where there are recurring themes, if I were to use that word, in both the 2004 report and the 2021 report, in terms of, for example, teaching and learning. That's a recurring theme, or curriculum. That's a recurring theme in both reports. And the important role of the leaders to lead and manage in that regard. We're looking at the areas of finance, for example, financing the education system. And the Patterson report spoke about it. In the findings from my study, the principals shared that they want to be better prepared to lead financial, or to take care of their financial duties. And that is also highlighted in the Patterson report. And the recommendation is for NCEL to design and to implement training programs around that area, which we have started actually, and we will continue to do to ensure that our school leaders are equipped to take on the role of leadership, and not just at the principal level, but also at the different tiers of leadership within the school setting and the system setting. Hence, for example, why we have put together this webinar on Leadership Day, NCEL Leadership Day, to highlight some of these areas that we're looking towards building out and celebrating our leaders as they endeavor to improve in these areas.
Okay, thank you,
If you permit me, my RD had a question in the chat asking about if the literature spoke to teacher training, and yes, I affirm yes with that. Teacher training also is something that the literature looked at, the fact that teachers need to be competent in using these tools and of course being able to navigate the online space.
Okay, and thank you for that response, sir. And colleagues, if there are no more questions, one more?
If I may just respond to the question by Marlon Smith. If we have if they have a research paper to do in our courses. So the difference, colleagues, that with NCEL programs is that while the theory is important, the practical component takes precedence at NCEL. It's about leadership in practice. And so whilst you will do your courses or your modules, the significant part of your training will be in your ability to demonstrate or to put into practice what you have learned. And so this is why we have a field experience intervention period in our core programs, where you have to undertake an initiative over a 12-week period to solve a problem in your school. So whilst you will use research principles and theories, etc., it's more about being practical in your approach, because that was the deficit that was identified in our reports. Our educators, they are qualified in terms of academic qualifications, but the gap that we have to fill in the education system is our ability to put into practice and to navigate the realities of leadership. Again, even on the idea of complexity theory, that it is not just about knowing something, it's about doing.
Thank you. Well said, Mr. Clark. And Mr. Lewis, thank you very much for a very informative and very engaging, very enlightening presentations, colleagues. And it has definitely, I know, opened your minds and have you reflecting on how you can ensure that your school, your space, your classrooms, your teachers are empowered to use the various tools that will enhance the learning of your students. Okay. Now, it has been a wonderful session, and we will now continue with the next phase of the day's activity. Over to you, moderator.
Colleagues, Camille Michael Patterson, Programs Officer. I am not Mrs. Winnie Berry. It is my task this afternoon to bring to a close the college's Leadership Day 2024. After a very inspiring webinar, we can say that the second staging of NCEL's Leadership Day under the theme Leadership for National Development, Digital Transformation and Research Imperatives, that the NCEL Leadership Day has achieved its objectives as we have affirmed our educational leaders' work and worth and promoted exemplary leadership practices, values, skills, and dispositions as emulated. Heartfelt thanks to all who participated in the program: Mrs. Winnie Berry, Dr. Joan Spencer Hernandez, Dr. Bola Jabe Agobola, Dr. Leo Gilling, Mrs. Shima Rankin, Mrs. Suzette Morrison Curtis, our main presenter for this evening. She presented on facts of artificial intelligence, the benefits of artificial intelligence, ethical considerations, potential impacts, overcoming challenges, adapting and resisting, enhancing learning and teaching, all relating to artificial intelligence, and also how artificial intelligence can enhance special education. We thank you, Mrs. Morrison Curtis. To our presenters, our researchers, our own Mr. Kerif Clark and Mr. Adley Lewis, your presentations were insightful and thought-provoking, and we know that these conversations will continue. For our future aspirants, I know they will give a keener eye to the glaring challenges that they can seek to develop meaningful interventions that are sustainable to improve school culture, climate, and overall student outcomes. And why do I know this? Based on the interaction from our audience, I can say that our appetite to conduct research is heightened, and we look forward to the gains. We are committed to the continued partnership and nation building to strengthen the prospects for the education system as we aim to navigate while strengthening the college's impact through delivering courses, initiatives that will improve the competencies, and dispositions of pre- and in-service educational leaders as we seek to improve how you lead instruction, how you do transformation, how you enact organizational leadership and community leadership to augment and ensure sustainable development goal 4, that of quality education. The NCEL, having been established as a part of the thrust to transform the Jamaican education system, will continue its mandate to epitomize our core values: collaboration, continuous learning, excellence, and quality service, as we are one of the transformational vehicles within the Ministry of Education and Youth. As we close the curtains on this second Leadership Day, we say thank you to everyone, and we look forward to seeing you all next year. Regional directors and special awardees, you are the wind beneath our wings. Have a good rest of the afternoon, colleagues. Those of you who are in transit, please get home safely. Thank you so much. Walk good, and see you next year, March 20, 2025, for Leadership Day. Thank you so much on behalf of the team here at NCEL. On screen, you will see the various ways that you can connect with us. And thank you again for joining us.